have some interesting stuff on the Colts that I'll just get into right out of the gate. Obviously, the Colts missed the playoffs last year because they shit the bed. Was it against Jacksonville?
It absolutely was. It was Carson Wentz, who was given a vote from a fan of best Eagles quarterback of all time.
Carson Wentz just couldn't get it done when they needed to get it done most, and that led to them moving on from the Carson Wentz debacle. Good head coach situation, great offensive line, good offense. They didn't really lose many players that I think are pivotal to their success, and they retained a lot of guys. But they did miss the playoffs last year because of a bad loss to the Jaguars. I'm thinking that the Colts are one of these teams that are going to bounce back in a big way this year.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan is a much better, much safer quarterback that you're going to have in big moments. Although he's been known to shit the bed in big spots, I don't think it was more or less he's never had the offensive line that he's going to have now and the running game that he's had now. He's always had the passing attack, but this is a different version of a Matt Ryan-led offense.
So here's the story of the Indianapolis Colts. The over-under, I believe, I don't know if you said it already. I was kind of doing my thing. 9.5. So 9.5 is the number for the Colts. Last year went 9-8. So they're thinking, which is why I kind of
it's up to 10 now, I think.
Is it
in real time? Yeah.
Okay,
so
because
people are slapping the over.
Slapping the over at 10 now. So you have to have 11.
Well, I mean, it went up to 10. So if
now
it was
you have
9.5.
All right, so we'll go over it, but. Key losses for the Indianapolis Colts over the offseason was obviously Carson Wentz, which I think is actually a gain. A key gain is not having Carson Wentz on your roster anymore.
Addition by subtraction.
Exactly. Zach Pascal moves on, goes to the Eagles. They lose Marlon Mack. We talked about the Mack attack over the Texans, headlining the Texans running game this year. They traded Rocky Sin last year in that one trade, so they lost him. Their gains in that trade, they got Ngakoue in that passing defense. We'll get into that in a second. Matt Ryan, you were talking about already. He's in. They do replace Marlon Mack with a Phillip Lindsay. I think that kind of works. You know, he's actually going to be the third guy behind Nyheim Hines and stuff like that.
Well, Nyheim Hines isn't really going to be. I think that
he's a complete supplemental back.
What happens in this situation is if Jonathan Taylor goes down, Phillip Lindsay is the add because he's gonna take over the Jonathan Taylor role. And Nyheim Hines is going to always be in his role, which is a third down back catching the passes out of the backfield.
Right. And they did not have a first round pick this year. They weren't able to enjoy that. But however, second round, a lot of people saying a lot of good things about Alec Pierce, wide receiver
talk about him in a little bit.
Cincy. He comes over there. They actually drafted a tight end in the third round. So they're trying to give some more weapons to Matty Ice as they go into the season. We had a comment come in from Jim Eagle. Colts play in the AFC West or play the AFC West. They're going to finish 7-10. He says poor secondary, poor wide receiver core, and no left tackle will doom them. We'll get into all that because I kind of beg differ on that one.
I feel like the AFC West might be a tad overrated.
I don't think that at all. I think that they have to play each other is what I'm thinking. We're going to get into the AFC West in a couple weeks, but like those guys all have to beat each other up, so that's why it's very hard to overrate them.
Denver against Indy is like a great matchup across the board. I don't see how you could look at the things that the Colts are bringing to the table defensively and with the running game that they have.
So
and say that they're going to win.
Obviously, quarterback led by Matt Ryan. I think 1,000% an upgrade over Carson Wentz. And just so you know, so everybody's aware, there is a guy in the locker room, in the quarterback room, that will be sticking his little neck out and just saying, hey, do you need me? Do you need me? Is Nick Foles. So just be careful of all that. He rejoins Frank Reich, which, by the way, if you all remember, nobody likes to remember this, but Philly was a Frank Reich call with Nick Foles. They have a little connection there. Running back room, I think it's stacked. I think it's Jonathan Taylor, who already in year, what is this, 3 for him or 2? Was he a rookie last year? No,
year 3.
Year 3 for Jonathan Taylor. He's already, in my mind, best running back pound for pound in the league right now. He's backed up by Hines and Lindsey, so I think that's a nice little running back room. The receivers, in which you guys mentioned before, I think it's a little better than what you're like. I think Michael Pittman Jr. is amazing. And then you're adding Pierce.
I think Michael Pittman Jr. is really good. He has his downfalls, but it's the same. I think he's like a Mike Evans light, where he's a bigger guy. He's a big target, but he's not going to burn people deep downfield. But he's a sure-handed person, and in the red zone, he's going to get a lot of targets. Alec Pierce, though, the White Wide Receivers of America Association,
which there is a club.
Represent, baby. Alec Pierce,
so
look,
stupid.
if there's a one guy offensively, because there is no quarterback this year that I think is going to take the reins and win the Offensive Rookie of the Year, if there's going to be a guy that I would take a flyer on gambling, it would be Alec Pierce, because he's one of the rookies that he's in a really good situation. playing, probably slotted to be starting week 1 as the number 2 wide receiver for the Colts.
When you're
in an offense that really you're going to be focusing a lot on stopping the run. And Matt Ryan, look at the number 2 receivers in Matt Ryan's tenure across his career.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Really good,
when a rookie receiver comes into the league and your first quarterback could be a la Matt Ryan, could be a la Aaron Rodgers, those guys are going to freaking eat, man. They're going to eat. They're going to get a lot of balls thrown their way. And I think Matt Ryan is a very, very good leader. And not a lot of people, there's no Matt Ryan hater club here. I love Matt Ryan. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. Obviously, he's on the wrong side of his age and he's getting a little older, but you give him a decent offensive line, and somebody mentioned before their left tackle. Yeah, it's a little different, but they still have the best guard in football, and they still have a really good offensive line. I think their offensive line is good. Yes, left tackle kind of took a little bit of a step back, but I think that this team is primed and ready right now to at least win this division. We'll go over the schedule in a second, but before I do that, the defense and the secondary, which was mentioned before as being not good. The defensive secondary, you all know football. Everybody knows football that are watching this show right now. The secondary gets better with a good pass rush. And when you have guys like Kwity Paye, Ngakoue, and DeForest Buckner on the defensive line, those corners aren't going to have to cover that long.
Yeah, but you're sitting here, not you per se, and they're just in terms of talking bad about their secondary, but we hear about the Raiders, about how good they're going to be. Could you name a guy in their secondary right now?
Yeah, Rock Ya-Sin, who they traded away. But yeah, you're right.
But he was a liability last year. He's a good hitter. He's not a great cover guy.
Just because his name's Rock? Is that what you're just assuming?
He's also Temple alum. Shout out to Ashmere Fit. But yeah, look, there's a lot of teams that have holes, and I'm looking at the AFC West, and that's what I'm saying, where I think they might be a little bit worse, because I know the Raiders have a liability in their secondary. The Colts, I don't think that they necessarily have as big of a liability as the Raiders do, but I think their front seven is more proven. The Raiders did add Chandler Jones to the mix, which we're not talking about the Raiders. I don't know why I'm even going there right now. But the Colts, their defense is proven. They turned the ball over so much last year. They forced the most fumbles in football.
Oh, I thought you meant they turned the ball over. You mean they got the ball on a turnover?
Yeah, they forced the most turnovers
Leonard's
last year.
A punch-out machine.
I don't know if they forced the most, but they forced the most fumbles. That's for goddamn sure. It was like 1.5 a game.
Leonard is one of the better linebackers, if not the best linebacker in football. You have a fantastic D-line. The offense is going to score some points. Jonathan Taylor is one of the best running backs in football, if not the best. They got Stephon Gilmore over there. It ain't that bad.
Say that.
It ain't that bad. You know what I mean? Like the secondary, like Gilmore is now a journeyman. I guess
a step a little bit.
He did. But like when you're not.
But 2 years ago, he was the best corner in football.
That's what I'm saying. So you can't fall that far from grace. So let's look at the schedule. Let's break it down, right? So they start the year with a win, right? They're gonna beat the Texans. They're gonna beat the brakes off the Texans in week 1. Then they go at Jacksonville, and I know they have a little bit of a bugaboo when it comes to Jacksonville games.
They're going to catch a hot flaming L in Jacksonville.
They can't win in Jacksonville. I don't know why. It is what it is, right? Like, so that's just sorry to say. Yeah, so they're Jim Eagle coming in with that comment because they're saying that they can't win in Jacksonville. It's just a thing. I don't know. Is it the hot weather, sticky humidity? I don't know. It doesn't matter. They can't win. So 1-1. Then they go back home to play Kansas City, in which I think is a fantastic matchup because Kansas City's defense is not all that as good as they used to be in the secondary. Matt Ryan might have a nice day. That's a home game, so we'll see.
We'll find out a lot about both teams in this matchup.
Yes, absolutely. Then they got the Titans at home, right? Then they go at Denver. Home against the Jaguars. There's your revenge game. You're going to get that win. You're going to split with Jacksonville, no doubt about it. You're also going to sweep the Texans. So that's right away. 3 wins right off the rip. What they do with the Titans, I say probably split with the Titans, giving them a 4th win there. So now you got to find the wins outside the division, right? You got the Commanders on your schedule. That's a dub. The Commanders, to me, are not going to be very good at football. I had, for God's sakes, Chris Canty, my guy, former Cowboy, won a Super Bowl with the Giants. All of a sudden, he forgets about the Cowboys, but now he's thinking the Commanders going to win the division over there. So let's, I don't know where he gets off thinking that. We saw, Carson Wentz ruined the Colts last year. So what makes you think he's going to, make the Commanders better? He's not a good quarterback, and I'm tired of that narrative. It's so dumb.
Commanders is a win.
Commanders is a win after all that. Before I go nuts on that one. And they'll probably win back-to-back games because they go at New England. I think New England, when we talk about them next week, New England's going to be a very piss-poor team.
New England at home, bro. That defense is going to be really good at home this year.
Doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to me. When your offensive coordinator is your former defensive coordinator, something's wrong. Something's broken New England. Okay, it's over. That ship has sailed. Mac Jones is in
they have
for
this
it.
like young new offensive coordinator that's really good, and they're just not telling anybody.
I'm sure that's the Belichick way, right?
And there's like some kid
all of a sudden, some kid's got a
doing
headset
everything.
on. You're like, who's that? Like, oh, he's the boy genius.
That's his 17-year-old son. He's also on cocaine, or is it meth?
Whatever. Either way. Then they got to go to Vegas. Tough matchup, right? I get it. But then they got 2 back-to-back games at home, Philly and Pittsburgh. And when I look at the Colts and I look at the way they match up with Philly, Philly's going to be better this year. I'm not going to sit here and be the Homer Cowboys fan and say like, well, Philly's going to lose every game. I think Philly will be good this year. I just think Matt Ryan is going to teach a couple of these young bucks a thing or two. I really do. They're going to beat.
Dave's got the Colts going 15-2.
I don't. I actually, believe it or not, I have them losing a couple games, like at Dallas. So that's one. But I got them. Look, on the road against the Giants. I think the Colts take that one, right? But it's in December, so it's going to be cold. The Texans, again, I told you they're going to win. So overall, 17-game schedule. Believe it or not, after all the good I just talked, I have them at 9. Okay, I have 9 wins. Now, give me a steal on the.
I did not hear you name 8 losses.
I'll tell you the losses. All right, at Jacksonville, Kansas City, they'll lose that game. At Denver, I think they might lose that game. Okay, just because I don't know why. Denver might be a little better than we think.
There's no reason why you should know why. It's just like based on what you think rosters are now, because there's so many factors that are going to go into the season.
At the Titans, I said they split, right? So there's 4 losses right there. At Vegas, I think that's a loss. At Dallas, I think that's a loss. At Minnesota's pesky when it comes to going at home with Kirk Cousins. I don't know what time the game is, but that could be a loss, right? And then they got to go play the Chargers. That's a loss. So they're like, I might eat all my words. That's fine. I'm cool with it. The Colts are going to be good. The Colts are going to be very good, and I think the Colts can win this division. We'll talk about the Titans tomorrow. What?
I like the Colts at 11 wins this year.
11-6,
and I think somebody came in fairly easily.
I think somebody
the
came
Titans
in
are going to be a lot worse offensively, big time worse offensively. Losing AJ Brown is going to crush them, and Derrick Henry got to see if he's healthy.
But I'm saying, like, there was somebody, I forget the comment. It came in here. It says somebody said something about Phillip Rivers winning 11 games. So Phillip Rivers, who can't, like, he's just doing the sidearm shuffle. If he's winning 11 games, then Matt Ryan there it is. The Colts got 11 wins with Phillip Rivers and 1 less game. Easy 11 wins with Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thought process
I agree with that.
Going into the season with Wentz, too. And they didn't, but, they had every opportunity to. There was a couple bad losses there where they were beaten up on Baltimore and they came back on.
Carson Wentz was an abomination.
And then the Jacksonville game where they shit the bed.
They could have made the playoffs.
I mean, I look more towards the Baltimore game early in the year, and they had an 18-point lead like mid 4th quarter, and they blew that one.
That was a rough.
So
one.
the Colts could have, they were right there. They're a really good team. They're well coached. And I think there's a bad taste in their mouth from last year, and they're set out to prove a lot of people wrong.
To me, in the NFL, I always am a firm believer that even though it's a passing league and everybody likes to throw the rock down the field and it's just aerial assault and everybody's all the hard-ons for the passing game, not enough stock is put into the fact that Jonathan Taylor is that goddamn good. And I think that if they run the football and dictate the pace of the game, Matt Ryan's going to find Pittman a lot. Matt Ryan's going to find Pierce a lot and feed that rookie. Matt Ryan's going to find Mo Alley Cox. Yeah, one of the better tight end. Not like
he's red zone.
He's red zone
threat.
6'12". I like Mo Alley Cox. But again, I think the Colts could be very good, and we'll preview the Titans tomorrow. But I think the Colts have a good chance without Carson Wentz, with that plague of a quarterback. I think they can win this division.
All right, so